The gymnastics world keeps getting into trouble for all sorts of reasons, and there's one woman that's looking to put an end to it. Lawyer Sally McKechnie is leading the change to the troubled culture that plagues gymnastics, and she has brought forward some rather harsh realities of what it's really like to be a gymnast. Let's take a look. Who is Sally McKechnie? Sally McKechnie is a lawyer from New Zealand. She admitted that she isn't really directly involved with gymnastics, aside from the year of gymnastics she took as a child, but she cares deeply about some of New Zealand's top gymnasts and their health. She is the leader of the committee that is trying to change the extreme culture surrounding the sport in New Zealand. The committee will have 7 members in total, with 5 of those spots going to people who have survived some of the abuse and injuries they have suffered from the sport. This committee was formed as a result of one of the biggest sporting scandals in the history of New Zealand, a controversy that flipped the sport in New Zealand over its head. What's the controversy surrounding gymnastics in New Zealand? In August of 2020, a group of 7 former gymnasts got together and made some alarming allegations about the way the sport is treated in New Zealand on the highest level. The allegations were reported on by a news outlet called Stuff, and it detailed some insane stuff. They claim that the athletes that are officially employed by Gymnastics New Zealand, or GNZ, the national body for the sport in New Zealand, are forced to endure almost constant psychological and physical abuse as a motivating factor. They said that athletes were forced to train and perform when they were injured. Female gymnasts were fat-shamed for gaining an extra pound or 2, and that some athletes were even emotionally manipulated on multiple levels. According to Stuff, there was an entire culture built around this abuse that completely normalized the behavior. Things would only get more abusive and intense as the 2020 Tokyo Olympics were approaching. There were also some allegations which were verified by Stuff in which judges would make sexual comments about female gymnasts while rating their performances. 2 judges would even admit to making the comments, saying it was a joke and that they regret the incident happened. What were some of the other abuses reported? The abuse at Gymnastics New Zealand facilities wasn't something recent. They had been going on since at least the early 1990s. Athletes from local clubs and the international team were victims of this abuse. GNZ didn't even have guidelines for athlete treatment until last year, and before that, it was essentially a free-for-all for all the coaches and the judges. Athletes were weighed even if they didn't want to, and missing the goal weight would mean that they wouldn't be allowed to eat. In some cases, their bags were checked to see if they were sneaking in any food, and food would be confiscated if they did. One of the athletes, Belinda Moore, reported that when she was 12 years old, she was told to eat an apple for dinner and nothing else by her coach. When Stuff contacted the coach in question, he declined to comment and told them to talk to GNZ. Another gymnast, Olivia Jobsis, reported that she was experiencing some intense ankle pain during her training when she was only 12 as well. She was told to walk it off, and as a result, her ankle injury got so severe that she had to get surgery on her leg. The injury was so bad that the doctors even considered getting rid of the leg altogether. How did Gymnastics New Zealand respond? As far as the initial response from Gymnastics New Zealand goes, they didn't even acknowledge the accusations. GNZ CEO Tony Compier said that the organization was not aware of any kind of allegations being made, despite it being one of the top news stories of the country at the time. He added that he regrets if any athlete ever felt bullied or threatened under his watch, and that GNZ strives to have a safe working environment. He said that each instance of abuse would be thoroughly investigated, and the board would refrain from commenting on the allegations until the investigation is completed. It wouldn't be until February of 2021, 6 months after the initial allegations were made, and a public outcry had been initiated, that GNZ would actually release a statement in which they acknowledged and apologized for the abuse that had occurred. In the public statement, GNZ applauded the victims for coming forward with the story, and that they will be working hard with their community and teams to address some of these issues. They also announced the formation of a committee that would directly tackle the issues, which was how we got to Sally McKechnie. What's the future of the sport like in New Zealand? We can safely say that there will be some major changes in the way the administration of GNZ is handled. Sally McKechnie had previously worked for various cricket boards in New Zealand and hoped that the changes she would bring in GNZ would be felt in other sporting boards across the country as well. Her law practice mainly deals with abuse in general, whether it's sports related or not. Sally has said that her recommendations are quite ambitious, but she's confident she can get them done. She has over 50 recommendations for changes to be made in GNZ, and considering the media storm they managed to rile up without even knowing it, they're not going to try and brew up another storm by rejecting any of these recommendations. She said that there will be a greater focus on both the physical and the mental well-being of the athletes that were under GNZ. Athletes will be encouraged to speak up if they feel too pressured or uneasy, while coaches and judges will be more censored and careful about what they say to the athletes. Over 88% of gymnasts in New Zealand are under the age of 12, and this kind of abuse is not something you want a 12-year-old to go through. USA Gymnastics settles with abuse victims. As horrible as the Gymnastics New Zealand scandal was, even that pales in comparison to the scandal that was the USA Gymnastics abuse scandal. It was revealed that USA Gymnastics Dr. Larry Nassir had been involved in hundreds of cases of child abuse during his long tenure with the organization. Nassir was eventually convicted of his crimes, being sentenced to life in prison. The conviction happened in 2017, but the families of the victims still demanded justice from USA Gymnastics. After a 3-year-long legal battle, the abuse victims finally reached a $400 million settlement with USA Gymnastics to end the never-ending litigation battle. level. To be clear, USA Gymnastics does not have anywhere close to that kind of money and will likely have to file for bankruptcy after this settlement. The deal allows for partial payments, so this isn't the end of the organization as we know it, but hopefully it's the end of the years of suffering that so many victims had to go through. Simone Biles surprises young fans. Simone Biles is perhaps the greatest gymnast in the world right now. Despite not being able to compete at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, Biles still has her spirits up and continues to inspire young fans all over the United States and beyond. In some wholesome news for a change, Simone Biles recently surprised a bunch of unsuspecting fans at an event. The young gymnasts from the Wendy Hilliard Gymnastics Foundation were told that they would be taking part in a normal photo shoot, but they were completely shocked when none other than Simone Biles crashed their photo shoot. It's a nice change in pace to see Simone Biles again, considering she has removed herself from so many recent competitions because of the twisties. Disabled teen becomes a gymnast. At a time when the gymnastics world is going through so much turbulence, this is probably the most heartwarming news you can hear right now. A 13-year-old girl from Bosnia named Sarah Bekarevic recently became the first disabled girl in her country to officially become a gymnast. Sarah was born without the lower portion of her left arm, and considering gymnastics rely on arms a lot, this was a pretty big deal. She competes against fully able gymnasts since gymnastics isn't a sport that is recognized by the Paralympics. However, this gives some people hope that disabled athletes might finally get recognized within this sport eventually. Japanese legend retires. And finally, we have the bittersweet announcement of Mai Murakami's retirement. Murakami was the best performing female Japanese athlete at the 2021 Tokyo Olympics, winning a bronze medal for her country. She has had a legendary career in gymnastics despite the sport not being all that popular in Japan. And in her retirement announcement, she said that she is grateful for all the love and support that she has received over the years, and that she is happy to retire in the best way possible. Considering she's only 25, it just goes to show how short a gymnast career can be. That's a wrap for the troubled culture of gymnastics. Do you think Sally will be able to bring about true change in GNZ? Let us know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.